Let's stay with that discussion of water and what the minister had to say. We're joined now by Dr. Anthony Turton, who's a water expert. Dr. Turton, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. I mean, are you in agreement with the comments by the minister? He says South Africa has enough water for use, despite being a water-scarce country. And by use, he says, for residents as well as for business.
Yes, water is a complex thing, and it's very often seems counterintuitive, where on the one hand you've got a major city like Johannesburg that's in a water crisis, and yet on the other hand we have water in the dam, in the Vaal Dam in this case, that's relatively full. So yes, if we manage our water wisely, we're certainly going to have enough water to grow our economy. The problem is that we're not managing our water wisely, and we are losing at least 50% of the water that's supplied by the bulk water suppliers gets lost before it ends up at the end consumer. So we are experiencing a serious problem in the management of our water. It's not a water scarcity issue. This is an institutional failure issue.
The institutional failure, you say, is it a crisis or is it a major problem?
I am on the record as having said that I believe we are seeing institutional failure. In fact, I described state failure as that situation that arises when an organ of the state, in this case a municipality, or it could be a department or something like that, but when an organ of state is unable to interpret signals coming from its operational environment and then converting those signals into an appropriate remedy to prevent a failure from occurring. So when that is unable to happen, in other words, we're talking here about self-correction, the ability of an organ of state to self-correct. And when they are unable to self-correct, then we can say that they have failed or they are failing.
Right.
So that's what we're seeing happening now in the water sector. We're seeing state failure playing out across the water sector. And it's not a national level thing. It's actually a municipal level thing.
And precisely why the minister is saying now, as the Department of Water and Sanitation, they are considering jumping over this delicate line that has always not been threaded, of moving from bulk water supply to delving into reticulation a little bit more. Do you think that would be a solution?
Well, I don't know if it'll be a solution, but it is a challenge at the moment. You must appreciate that we're a young democracy, and part of the problems that we're having is that we've got a constitution that has never ever been reformed or never ever been updated. And there's a clause in the constitution called the Cooperative Governance Clause. And that means, or that basically cuts off the hands of the Department of Water and Sanitation, because they are unable to reach across into the activities of other government departments and other tiers or spheres of government. So, in other words, it means that effectively the Department of Water and Sanitation is unable to regulate. That's really what it comes down to. And that's a constitutional issue. So we should really have some or other constitutional reform to overcome that. So I'm fully sympathetic with the minister when it comes to that. But the bottom line is this, that we are unable at municipal level, we are unable to convert those signals coming from the operation environment that things are going wrong. We're unable to convert those signals into actions that are viable, that are fully resourced, that are able to actually turn the ship around. So for that reason alone, we can say that places like Johannesburg Water are a perfect example of state failure at a local level.
Yeah. So when the political oversight department says, well, national government has got to collaborate with municipalities to ensure the development of water infrastructure, are those promising signs of a possibility of something that could possibly happen here, some kind of regulatory framework that they can put together to allow that crossing over?
Yes, I'm part of a group of professionals that's been for a long time now trying to open up this whole debate about whether the Department of Water and Sanitation can be both player and referee. We are of the opinion that they cannot be both player and referee, and this is an exact example now of that dilemma that they face. So we've been calling for an independent water regulator that is freed from that constitutional conundrum or constraint. However, having said that, it's not the Department of Water and Sanitation that's failed. This is actually municipal level failure. We're talking about Johannesburg water that's failed.
Yeah.
And, we need to differentiate those two. And we need to also understand that within Johannesburg Water's leadership falls ultimately under the mayor. And the mayor, we know we've got a coalition government in power in the Johannesburg Metro. And we know that is a very unstable coalition with exceptionally weak leadership at the moment. So how can you expect anything in terms of long-term planning, complex decision-making around these really major problems that they're facing? How can we expect that to happen when the mayor himself is actually just invisible? He's almost like given up his role as a responsible leader. So we have a power vacuum at municipal level, not necessarily at national level.
So how do we arrest that decline at municipal level? How do we, too, develop the capacity at municipal level to be able to respond to the overall crisis?
There has been a lot of technical work that's been done sort of behind the scenes. I'm party to a group of people in the SA Business Water Chamber. We've been working on these issues, and we've been working very closely with the Presidency, with the Treasury, with the National Planning Commission, with the Development Bank of Southern Africa. And the whole idea of a special purpose vehicle is now being rolled out and being mooted. And you're going to start seeing the special purpose vehicles coming more and more to the fore because these things are legal instruments that enable capacity to be rebuilt within a municipality, but it also ring fences the finances. So in this case, finances that was raised for water rehabilitation or for water upgrades will be spent on on water upgrades. It can't be hijacked for, to buy the mayor a new house or something like that. So these special purpose vehicles are something that you're going to start seeing more of in the future. And in fact, they're also starting to come out now in the energy sector. So wherever you've got major failure or in this case, energy failure, the Eskom collapse, and also now we're seeing water failure. So those two areas of critical failure, we're starting to see these special purpose vehicles coming forward now as legal instruments. And think of it as a cookie cutter solution that you can plug into a municipality that is compatible with the Municipal Financial Management Act on the one hand, but it also brings in the Companies Act on the other hand, which now plugs some of the holes that the Financial Management Act has got in its legislation. So it's a complex legal and institutional thing, and of course it's in the great important strategic interest of the majority of society, because if we don't get this right, then there's going to be an external correction, and that external correction is either going to take place through the courts, some kind of legal intervention, and there's been some examples of that. Most of that has failed. Or the other external intervention would be a suspension of the Constitution through some or other kind of popular uprising, some or other kind of extrajudicial means, which of course is not in our collective best interest. So we need to avoid that at all costs. So the way to overcome this, I think, is going down that road of the special purpose vehicle, and then creating technically competent task teams that understand these problems, are not connected at all to any political parties, so depoliticize the management of water and just put the best qualified people in place, and then hold them fully accountable for what they're supposed to do.
So as we then anticipate the establishment of that special purpose vehicle and the establishment of these task team, what do you make of what we are going through right now? Would you call it water shedding? Are these blackouts? The minister saying it's not as hectic as all that.
Well, the minister's solution is official, and that is what is called water shifting. So, I mean, he came up with a concept of water shifting, which is really like load shedding. So water shifting is to the water sector what load shedding is to the energy sector. And the reason why that has to be done is simply to avert a total collapse in a localized system. So it doesn't fix up the problem. All it does is it provides a small amount of water to some critically important areas. And if anything, if you want to sort of strip away all the nice words around it, it prevents a local angry mob from taking to the streets and protesting. That's really all it does. It just keeps some people happy for some of the time, but it does not solve the problems in the long term. The long-term problem is that the three metros in Gauteng, the three major metros in Gauteng, are something like 100 billion rand worth of arrears in terms of their capital expenditure. And that's a huge amount of money. Right now, with the economy being in the condition it is, we're not going to be able to raise that money from the fiscus. And this is where these public-private partnership, these special purpose vehicles might play a potential role. Because capital is willing to go into that space, and we have a lot of technology that's willing to go into that space, but capital won't go in there unless there's quite a lot of certainty, particularly around these governance-related issues, and of course around corruption, crime, the pilfering of these funds. This has to be overcome, and that's the purpose of these special purpose vehicles.
Dr. Turton, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. Dr. Anthony Turton is an auto expert there, joining us with some analysis on those comments.